Okay, this is a brief overview of how to install or upgrade the firmware on the Swift to Swift Beta 13. This short video is meant to supplement the instructions that have already been sent out and just provide some more detail. So when you download the update, you're going to have a folder in the end that looks like this one, and you're going to see a few folders here. The first one called Defuse. That's the program that we're going to actually use to update the firmware. There's the Swift Beta 13 folder. That's the configuration utility that we'll use to program the Swift after it's been updated, and also to get it into the firmware update mode. There's some more details about the release itself. There's a written guide that covers much of what I'm going to talk about here on the video, and there's also the firmware update file itself. This contains the software that will upload to the Swift recorder in order to do the upgrade. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is uninstall the old version of the Swift software. And to do that, you'll just go into Control Panels under Windows and the Programs and Features section, and you'll find Swift and the Swift software, and you'll just click Uninstall. This may look different depending on what version of Windows you're running. Again, you will need a PC running Windows 7 or later. So you can have anything from Windows 7 up through the latest version of Windows 10, and everything should work fine. Okay, once you've uninstalled that version, any old version you might be running, you're going to start both the Swift. First you're going to run the Swift setup utility, Swift setup or installation, and you can do that just by running setup.exe in the Swift Beta 13 folder. And you're also going to install the Defuse software, which is just installed using this Defuse demo setup.exe. So you run both of those, you get both programs installed, and once they are installed, you start both of them up and run them side by side, or just make sure both of them are running at the same time. And so on the right you see the Defuse demo software, on the left you see the configuration utility. I ran this once already, so it's got some error messages. Let me just clear the screen. Okay, so we have both the Swift configuration utility and the Defuse demo. Do not plug the Swift into USB at this point. Just get both programs running, and once you have them running, then plug the USB connection into the Swift itself. So again, the USB is located here. You need a micro USB connector or cable that goes to the same computer you're running these two programs on, and then you just plug it in and make sure the blue light on the front goes solid blue, and a connection. Windows will load the driver and connect to the recorder, at which point this error message will pop up that says firmware not compatible. And that is because your Swift is probably running the old version of the firmware, which cannot connect in this version of the Swift configuration utility. So to update the firmware, we're going to click OK to reboot into firmware update mode. So we're going to do that. Before we click OK, I would just like to point out that over here in Defuse, under this drop-down menu, there's no available DFU devices. A DFU device is something like this Swift. But after we've rebooted into firmware update mode, a device should appear in this drop-down list if everything goes as planned. So I'm going to hit OK. It's now rebooting. You're going to come up with some unexpected exceptions. You just got to click OK to all these as well. So there's going to be a few of them. And you'll see some errors down here, but pay no attention to those. The important thing is that over here in Defuse we now have a available device in this drop-down menu. And that means we've established a connection now to the Swift through the device firmware update mode. And that's going to allow us to upload the new firmware. So what we're going to do first is click this Choose button down here. And that's going to allow us to browse to our firmware update file, which again is going to be in the folder that you've downloaded through the link that I've sent out already. So that's this file we're looking for now. So going to copy this path. I'm going to paste it here. And right now we're just browsing through in the diffuse demo program to the SwiftRevA beta 17_5 DFU file. Once we've found that, we're going to double click it or click open, and that's going to load it into the DFU or diffuse program. And you're going to see down here in the status bar that it says file correctly loaded. So again, we clicked this choose button to select that file. Now what we need to do is click this button right next to it that says upgrade. And when we do that, we're going to get this error message here, or just notification message that says your device was plugged in DFU mode. Continue however, yes, you're just going to click yes. Now you're going to notice this status bar down here. It's going to say download phase and this various other things, but it's important that in the end it says upgrade successful. And so now we've uploaded this SwiftRevA beta 17_5 DFU file to the Swift through the USB connection. And we've successfully programmed it. Now we want to leave DFU mode. And to do that, we click Leave DFU mode button here. Now it should say successfully left DFU mode. And at that point, it should reconnect over here in the Swift configuration utility. We no longer get the error message about the firmware update being the wrong firmware version, because we've now updated it and we have the correct firmware version. And to verify, you can look down here. This is the number that's going to be important: STM32 firmware version 0.17.5.0. One other thing, in the diffuse, if you don't see a device loaded in this drop-down menu right away after rebooting into firmware update mode, give your computer a minute or two to load the driver, because a new driver will be loaded at that point if you've never done the process before. And on some computers it can take up to a minute or two. So if you don't see a device listed here immediately after rebooting in the Swift configuration tool, then just give your computer a few minutes to find the driver, and hopefully a device will appear here eventually, and you can run the update that I just showed. If you are having any trouble, don't hesitate to email with any questions or difficulties you're having, and we'll do the best we can to solve those. Okay, thank you.